Since we're on the air,
Green lights on.
I went for the sign, but he gave me the thumbs up. There it is.
Supposed to go
Okay.
action?
7 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 4th. This is the Londonderry Utilities Committee meeting, 7 o'clock, Moose Hill Conference Room, calling it to order. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have a couple of members absent tonight, Martha and Jeff. Martha had a previous engagement. Jeff is out of town on business. So I'm going to appoint the members on my right to vote in their absence. So Ray will vote for Martha, and John will. My left.
Other right.
My other right.
I do that all the time.
I do all the time. And then John will vote for Jeff. Yeah, I don't mind it. First order of business, public comment. We have no members of the public tonight, so we'll move on from that. Second is we had scheduled Mindy Messmer to come in and talk to us. As of yesterday morning, she asked to have a Zoom meeting set up instead of a face-to-face, and unfortunately, we just weren't able to figure out how to make that happen on short notice. So, Ann's been,
Canceled it.
yeah, Ann's
Yeah.
been in contact with her, and
Yeah. Well, now we're talking about September 3rd.
September 3rd. So we'll make sure it happens then, and
And I'm trying to encourage her to come, even if we still have trouble with the Zoom.
I hope we can have those technical difficulties figured out by September 3rd. If not, we'll know that we can't do it. We'll have a decision one way or the other by or September 3rd.
It's not going up right. I don't have much luck with computers.
And with that, we'll move on to administrative work. Where do we stand with minutes, approval of minutes? John?
So the previous month, and I didn't get these out till, I don't know, Sunday. So the previous month, and if people had a chance to read 2 previous months, and if people had a chance to read previous month, that's the 2 we have to approve.
So can we vote on April?
April's the month first.
So I'll take a motion to vote to approve the April minutes.
So moved. A second.
Second, all in favor of approving April minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that is approved unanimously. So May minutes went out. I don't know if people's had a chance to look at the May minutes yet or not.
Yes.
I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion, Paul, to approve the May minutes. Anybody second?
I'll second it.
Second on Ray. All in favor of approving the May minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And that is unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Thank you as always, John, for
It would be
clear
late.
and concise.
Without having that video, I am lost.
Cle-
And again, I did lose the first 10 minutes, but I think I got what we needed to get, so.
Clear and concise. And with that, we'll move on to discussions with staff. Kirsten, Mike, thank you for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. What's the good word you can
After all,
share
it's a
with
cold,
us?
rainy night.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's I'm not wearing a suit and a tie, so a little more relaxed than last night. And no, very happy to be here. This is obviously a lot of important work that's pending before this committee. And I wanted to, you all know Kirsten Hilden, our administrative support coordinator. You probably know her first as the person who's assisted you with your email and your onboarding, and second as the person who is behind the now famous infographic that I think played a part in the passage of the water warrant article. So, Mr. Chair, pursuant to your request that this be staffed, we are going to be here, some combination of us and John Trottier going forward. as far as possible. I can't guarantee that every occasion will be here, but we're going to strive to do that. And I'm happy to answer any of the committee's questions now or as we go, and I'm sure Kirsten's happy to do that as well.
Excellent, excellent. No, like we had talked about, I just think, I think the work we do is very important, and I think having that conduit from this committee into the town hall is important, and having somebody here to, you know, that we can direct our questions and concerns to, and then they can come back to us as well, is very important, so.
Agreed.
So thank you for making that happen.
You're most welcome.
Really appreciate it. Any other news, updates you can share with us, things happening committee-wise?
Yeah, so I guess a few things, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we go, probably on water. But you know, as many of you saw last night, the commitment that I have made to the town council and the community is that my objective, and I want to be very careful about how I phrase this, my objective has been, you know, since my early days in office and continuing until now, that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that the meetings of every board and committee are televised, taped, recorded, and televised, so that the community can interact with what's happening at their convenience. So the Utilities Committee has been on the list, and we've done a pretty good job, I think, at recording this committee's meetings from the inception.
I think every meeting has been
Every meeting.
televised.
One, maybe.
There may have been one that was dropped, but that doesn't extend to subcommittees. As I said last night, we just don't have the resources, and nor do I think it would be particularly conducive to. I think at the subcommittee level, it's mostly like working groups,
Yep.
or you know, and of course those remain open to the public, and the public's welcome to attend. But I think for the most part, this committee doesn't have anything to worry about as far as that is concerned. You know, other news. We continue to work on the High Range Road water project. Discussions and negotiations continue with Saint-Gobain, with DES, and with Penachuk. I am pleased with the progress that's been made since the March vote. We have gotten down to the point where Penachuk is doing borings, talking about crossings, and my point in saying that is that it's advanced to the point where we're actually talking about real engineering, and I'm confident that the $2 million ARPA money that we have in hand can be obligated by the end of this year, as we're required to do. I'm confident that the loan application that we got voter approval for, $2.95 million through the PFAS Remediation Loan Fund, will be submitted, and hopefully all indications are approved in advance of August, when the interest rates reset. I have a draft of that that we're working on as a staff and talking with DES and Penachuk. And I expect that within the next week or so, we'll be in a position to submit that to DES. The plan is to, pretty soon on the heels of that application, submit an application to the trust fund for $7 or $8 million, which is, it's hoped will round out that project. You know, when you consider Saint-Gobain's dollars as well. So that's the progress I have to report on the warrant article, and what has transpired since that point. I think that Councilor Dunn has been hard at work. I would just flag as an issue of importance to this committee in Concord, ensuring that funding for the rebate program remains in place. I'll let him explain that further. That is obviously of prime importance to our water project, because we want to incentivize people who this water line runs by to connect to it, and the rebate program remains available, and we're hoping will continue to remain available to fund a connection to up to $10,000 to defray the cost of connection. So That's important to Londonderry and to the Warren article and to the work that's underway.
That's 10,000 per connection per house,
Correct.
essentially. Okay.
Correct. Yep. I think that's all I have to report.
So how do the ARPA funds get designated to the project? You said you'd hope to have that done by the end of the year.
Yeah.
How does that happen? What's
Yeah.
the process for that?
So it'll consist of we're talking about competitive purchasing here under our purchasing policy. There will be an RFP that's put out, and Penachuk has, I'm not going to call them preferred vendors, but they have vendors that they work with regularly who bid on Penachuk projects. And Penachuk is confident that somebody will bid, multiple people probably will bid on our project. Remains to be decided whether the project is bid as one or in smaller segments. Certain vendors are able to maybe bid on a smaller segment, but not the whole thing. And so there's some decisions that need to be made around that. But the obligation to, or I should say, the requirement that we obligate that money by the end of 2024 is satisfied when we award the contract and have a legally enforceable agreement with the vendor.
Okay, so it's upon contract award, then
Correct.
it's fully obligated, okay. And do we have to go out to the individual suppliers, or we can't go to Penachuk and let them be like the prime contractor for the project?
That's exactly one of the things that is under discussion.
Okay.
That resembles the Lancaster Drive project, where essentially Penachuk was the prime contractor, and they did the bidding on our behalf. The finance director and I think that would probably satisfy the ARPA requirement, and I think that it very well could end up looking like that.
So I think administratively, that would make the most sense. I mean,
Correct.
they have one contract to administer. so.
Exactly.
Can I ask a question around Saint-Gobain in the negotiation? Are they actually participating, or from folks from Saint-Gobain and their lawyers participating in negotiations?
Yes.
Do we have any kind of assurance from them that they will contribute, not necessarily just to the High Range Road project, but to providing funds to develop an infrastructure of pipes so that folks who are on private wells could be hooked up so they get water from municipal wells?
So I'm going to give an answer that may not satisfy you, but
Just wanted to
it's all I'm going to say about that specific topic tonight, which is yes, they're participating in ostensible good faith. They have the right people participating in the negotiations. The negotiations are going well, but I want to make sure that there's room for those negotiations to take place without me sharing, what is occurring to facilitate the freest,
Right, it's
most
usually
confidential
confidential.
set of negotiations. These discussions have they've been recent. As I said, I'm pleased with the progress, but I'm not going to go any further.
Can you say how often you meet to negotiate?
I'm not going to. No, I'm pleased with the progress.
Mike, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned the $7 or $8 million grant from the trust fund. You're referring to the drinking water, groundwater trust fund.
Correct.
So that's a big ask. Do we have some assurance that there's an earmark for us, or without?
I think assurance is not a word I would use, but I am optimistic that that there will be an award in that neighborhood. DES, it's important to know, has been very much involved in this project at every juncture. DES really encouraged us to go a little bit bigger than I think we were originally thinking of going. There is a shifting funding landscape that you always have at the state level, particularly during, the budget process and with this ARPA money that's, has a short lifespan, I think it's fair to say at this point in time. Obviously, the demand for water dollars has never been greater, particularly with the recent EPA action that's been announced, bringing the standard down to 4. But there probably isn't a community in the state that's harder hit by PFAS than Londonderry. DES not only recognizes that, but they recognize that in order to achieve some of the larger regionalization goals, I'm not going to say all roads lead through Londonderry, but many of them do. So it's in the state's interest, and it's in some of our neighbors' interests that these projects get done.
Thank you.
Go ahead. You have a follow-up?
No, that was my thank you.
Could I ask a question? Is it not true that Pennachuck Water gets either federal or state money for infrastructure work? For instance, potentially what they've done to Litchfield, maybe Bedford, and potentially could be doing to Londonderry. Is that not true that they get federal money for that?
I don't know the answer to, I think you asked about state and federal.
Right.
I don't know the answer about federal money. It's my belief that they have received, perhaps are receiving state money in the form of trust fund awards. I believe that Pennachuck has at least benefited from ARPA dollars, which have conduited through the state. So I guess that would answer the federal question. ARPA is a federal program.
Right.
For studies, engineering studies, some of which have been shared with this board. The supply and distribution conceptual studies that were done by Weston and Sampson, I believe those were they were funded by one of them was by the through operating budget, and I can tell you at least one of our studies, the rate study that we did, was funded through ARPA dollars sent down from the state. So I don't have a list offhand, but what you're saying, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, and it sounds about
The
right.
reason I'm saying is, I happened to go to an executive council meeting where Pennachuck came before the executive council and the governor for approval to get, I forget what the amount was, but it was in the millions of dollars to extend a line in Wyndham. And so it seems as though they have and potentially could get money to help us out, okay? Because we have to realize that that Pennachuck is a business, and they have to look at potentially, if they're going to run lines, is it going to be beneficial to them?
Of course.
That's business, okay? So we really need to think about getting water to the people in the consent decree in Londonderry, okay? The fact that an individual house could put in for $10,000 to run the pipe from the road to their house, but what I'm concerned about is getting the pipes, for instance, from High Range Road into the consent decree. And so,
Plus outside the consent decree area.
well, that's beyond, but let's take care of the people in the consent decree first.
But
I
they're
would
getting,
suggest.
they're at least getting bottled water, whereas folks who are outside the consent decree and those folks who are in private wells are not getting anything.
Well, but the people in the consent decree that can have contaminated wells should get municipal water. I mean, we're talking in the next 30
Everybody should
years,
get
the whole
municipal
town of
water.
Londonderry is going to get municipal water.
Right.
But let's take care of the people that are most impacted. And yes, there are people beyond the consent decree that are also impacted.
Seriously
And they
impacted.
need to get it. But my point is, what is Penachuk's commitment to running some of these lines? I mean, they are going to benefit eventually because people are going to be paying for that municipal water. You understand what I'm saying?
I think so. As far as Penachuk's commitment to running water line extensions into the consent decree area,
Yes.
Penachuk has worked in cooperation with St. Cobain and the state to study that, to conceptualize that. They've worked in cooperation with us as we've supported those efforts and advocated for those efforts. I think you're correct that, yes, Penachuk would like to see more folks on Penachuk water. That they are in the business of selling water, and I agree with you that
Yeah.
as a general matter that they would like to expand their customer base. I think it's fair to say that this is an oversimplification, but in theory, the more folks that you add to the customer base, the better it ought to be for everyone. So I think all of that is true.
Yeah. I mean, they have already put municipal water into some sections in Litchfield, okay?
Yep.
Now, not sure where the money came from to cover that, but, potentially we have water coming as far as West Road, and potentially could come further into the consent decree. And so I'm just wondering, what is Penachuk's commitment to doing that, incentive, let's say?
I can't speak for, I mean, as you pointed out, they're a business. And I would never presume to know what a business is thinking or what might incentivize a business and what might not. But I think that Penachuk stands to benefit from some of the larger efforts that you're describing.
And can't we have the conversation with them? I mean, there's no problem with having conversation with them to get an idea of what their thoughts are.
I don't want to, I want to give Penachuk room to maneuver and space to, make these decisions. But I can tell you that I spoke with their CEO at least once last week, and I spoke with him today, and I'm planning to on Friday. So there are active discussions taking place at all different levels.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
Yeah. I am curious. I understand that there are at least 30 state attorney generals that are a part of the suit that's going forward with DuPont, 3M, and Chalmers. 30. That's a lot of attorney generals. There are also a large number of cities and states which are planning on suing. Now, I understand in New Hampshire, there doesn't appear to be the political will to have our attorney general be a part of the suit. That may change, we don't know. But we are not necessarily beholden to that decision. And I'm curious as to how much thinking has been done to whether or not this town will join in any of the suits.
So I guess two things.
So, and the reason why, it's not just to get back at DuPont or 3M. It's essentially to get money so that we can build the pipe so that everyone in town can have, municipal water, which is the major goal.
So I would say two things. One is I'm unaware whether our attorney general has or has not joined that suit.
He hasn't.
And I don't have any reason to disagree with what you're saying, but I also don't have any reason to agree with what you're saying because I just don't know. In New Hampshire, an important element of any lawsuit in civil court is that you have damages, that you have money damages. And as I've discussed before, that we've determined that the town, as a governmental body, does not have money damages for PFAS contamination. Because we don't have a municipal water system. We have not had to install filtering systems like for this building, for example. If this building were on a well that had been contaminated by PFAS and we felt that we could establish in court by a preponderance of the evidence that St. Gobain was responsible, that is damages due to PFAS contamination.
Right, but we haven't had any health assessment done of the folks in Londonderry. There hasn't been a CDC or even Dartmouth University, which is doing a health assessment, is not looking at Londonderry. So if we did put in a request for even a health assessment, and as I understand, Londonderry does have a pretty high cancer rate, we could at least establish that and go for damages. I'm not talking about necessarily just town buildings
Right.
or school buildings.
Right.
I'm talking about individual citizens
Right.
too.
So my second point was this. In New Hampshire, municipalities don't have what's called representative standing. So there are some jurisdictions where municipalities have the ability to litigate the interests of their citizens. We do not. And that's why this assessment, which has involved multiple attorneys, including first myself, then Mike Ramsdell, and then Sheehan Finney, we've all come to the same conclusion, which is that under very well-settled law, there's a New Hampshire Supreme Court case that's directly on point. Only New Hampshire has representative standing to sue for, as you described, the health
Right.
impacts of our citizens. So
So it has to be the Attorney General's
Yes.
office.
that's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
That's interesting. Do you know how many other states in the country are like that?
I do not.
Interesting.
But in saying that, the New Hampshire Attorney General does have the ability to join a federal class action suit, which would potentially get money for Londonderry into fracture. Ron, can you
Yes.
speak in that
I mean, you
regard?
have 30 other attorney generals across the country that are part of the suit.
Well,
That'd be a state
I'm-
class action.
let's talk about New Hampshire.
Right, but I'm talking about the attorney general in New Hampshire.
It does have the ability. The problem is our attorney general currently doesn't have the desire
will.
to do that.
Well,
Is that the
okay.
polite way? I'd say doesn't have the will to do that at the moment.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem, and that's why us from the town needs to insist from our representatives that something happen. Something needs to move forward in that regard.
Yeah, and it's not just our town, it's lots of other towns in Rockingham
Yes,
County.
yes, and I'm not talking about the town filing a class action. I'm talking about the state
I know.
joining a class action suit.
Well, that's why I brought it up, Ray.
That is certainly again, I'm just uninformed about that fact, and I don't have any reason to believe that but they also could be evaluating whether to proceed. I mean, these things move on a very slow timetable.
But we've heard what Ron said, and he's had the discussion, apparently.
What I would encourage, again, that is a legitimate topic of discussion. But what I would encourage where I think this committee has done its best work is not in, trying to boil the ocean, but in working on specific tailored solutions within our practical ability to achieve here in Londonderry, and I think the warrant article is exactly such an example. So I can tell you that the state takes this very seriously. I can tell you that the Department of Justice is engaged on this, and I think it's important that we recognize what a good partner DES and the state have been to Londonderry, and I want to make sure that, to the extent we are criticizing
I'm not criticizing anybody. We're
if I
encouraging.
could finish, Mr. Chair, to the extent that we are criticizing or critiquing the state for action that it has or has not taken, I think we should make sure that we have all the facts before we do that.
Yep, I agree.
3 cookies. Real quickie one, about the comment you made about suing and monetary value. Just a thought, we don't get this fixed, those houses are gonna be like unsellable, and that is property value.
Right.
So, just thought about that. Second thing is, I'm sorry, you gonna say something?
No, I think that, I mean, yes, there,
It could be a
The-
case, but that's boiling it.
but it would be the homeowner's case. And I think, but to your point, I think it is important to note that I was talking about representative standing and who has it or who doesn't.
Exactly.
The one thing that everybody has on their own behalf is to sue for their own damages.
Right.
And that includes our citizens.
Right. Like.
That's a
look-
little tougher. That means each individual citizen has to, and you didn't even have that in Parkersburg, West
You can get
Virginia.
a class action suit still.
I won't disagree with you that
more difficult.
accessing legal services is a challenge, can be a challenge, and that there are
There's
barriers to
citizen
entry.
suits, right.
sorry?
No, I mean, under the Clean Water Act, under the Safe Drinking Water Act, there are provisions for citizen suits. But I guess, if, it's interesting to me that our towns in New Hampshire don't have any representation in terms of standing. So all of the towns in New Hampshire have no
That's correct.
representative legal
Yeah,
standing.
unless they're
correct.
specifically authorized to act.
That's right.
There has to be legislation specifically authorizing a town to do something.
So if
For
all
a
these guys get
particular-
together and do legislation and make a thing that's voted upon, then
Yep.
we're
Right.
boiling the ocean. So,
Yep.
second thing, we'll move along, we'll get too late tonight. You did mention, yes, we're moving along, we've got assignments, we have our subcommittee meetings, which you've explained when we have to get a room and not get a room, and that sounds weird, huh? Anyways, get a library room. What about a working group? So as we're getting into, Ann's leading the way on getting the next video done, we're all working on what we're gonna do to help support the master plan. And there's a lot of documents. I mean, my desk is starting to look like okay, I'm trying to catch up to all these guys. What if we want to take a review one document? Do we have to call a public meeting if 4 of us want to get together to review a document? We're not taking any action, we're just looking at it, making cliff notes, writing down things, questions for the next meeting, or to bring to the meeting. Do we have to? We're trying to, there's a lot of stuff we gotta digest in the next 6 months, so
Yep.
that's what I'm worried about.
So the answer is that it really depends on the context. A meeting is defined as the convening of a quorum of the public body to discuss or deliberate upon a matter under its jurisdiction or a subset thereof. So if you have formally established subcommittees that are getting together that have a smaller composition than this board, and a quorum of those subcommittees is getting together to talk about, whatever that subcommittee has been established for, you have a meeting.
Right,
If how many people are on this board? Full members?
Seven.
7 full members.
If 3 members of the board are getting together to talk about some new initiative that is neither energy, water, sewer, solid waste, or cable internet, maybe for example, what was the thing you asked me to look at? Waste oil or oil, negotiating oil
Well, the
pricing of oil.
rates.
heating oil aggregation.
We don't have a subcommittee that's been established for that purpose. That's not a quorum of the committee, of the utilities committee that's convening to discuss a matter under its jurisdiction, not a meeting. That's what the,
Okay.
those are the,
It's easy enough. Jeff will
parameters.
just get a room and I'll
Yeah.
record the minutes. However, on the subcommittees, so for example, on the water, I think there's only 2 committee members on that subcommittee. Is that correct?
On the
On the
water
water?
subcommittee?
There's
No,
five.
there's more than
There's
that.
5.
Five.
No. There's alternates.
What, no.
no?
The water subcommittee
Yeah.
is all voting members, right?
Is it?
So the way so let's get into
Okay.
this. Everybody here is on 2 committees, right? Each committee, there's 5 people on each committee, on
Right.
each subcommittee.
All right, so we're all voting members. Okay.
Yeah, so, and the way we wrote the rules and the way I think that works the best is on the subcommittees, everybody's a voting member.
All right, so we'll get a room. Jeff will do it. I'll do the minutes but there'll just be a lot of minutes and I don't care. The next thing is, I'm a documentation project manager type guy, so I've noticed that I've been cataloging all of these things that Ann says you need to read this, and Lynn sends me this, and I'm trying to put it all in one place and make it accessible and put a directory. Now, I can very easily do that. That does not mean I'm gonna put the whole water master plan in this directory. It means I'll put a pointer there, so if somebody wants to go there, they can click on it and they can find it very easily. They can look through the directory and do all that stuff. Is that something I need to do with you in the cloud? Or can I put it in my Dropbox and invite all the committee members?
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. If it's okay with you, I'd like to talk to our IT department about that, about where we stand in that and what would be the best way.
That's why I understand.
We do have a couple of options for that, but I'm hesitant to answer now. So
Yeah.
if it's okay, I can research that and
That's
get
why I
back
brought
to
it
you.
up now. No rush. No rush.
Okay.
I got them sitting there, so, it's not a problem. Okay?
Yep.
John, the idea here is that if you create this library, I go to it and interact with it. Lynn goes and interacts. We're not interacting with each other. There's no quorum.
No, this is just a reference thing. It's not, that was item number 3, second from item number 2. Item number 3 is I want to make sure I don't break any storage and Information Act rules with the town and make sure that I'm putting the information in the right place. That's all.
So-
It wasn't about a quorum or anything like that.
Right, so-
Good point.
I guess a couple of things. One is whether you are, those are probably public records.
Yep.
Because they're being shared with a quorum of either this committee or the subcommittee. So it's important that, I don't know whether they're subject to any retention requirement, because I don't know what the records are or what they say, but they may be. So it's important, what I would advise is that you just ensure that you safeguard them. To Mike's point, though, I tend to agree that what you're describing does not constitute a meeting.
No.
Because you lack the contemporaneous getting together element. What you have to be careful to avoid, though, is that you not have
I did not say Google Docs.
what are
specifically.
correct. That's
That's
yes.
exactly what you're going to.
Or sequential electronic communications
Correct.
that violate the spirit or intent of the right to know law.
This is a
So
resource library.
if you're using this collection of documents in a way that's like having like a chat room,
Nah, can't do that.
can't do that.
Can't do that.
And I would stay away from the mutual document that you're editing that anybody can log in and edit at the same time. Don't do that.
Editable documents do not go there.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Yeah, NORAD doesn't like it when you share their documents.
Any other questions or comments for Kirsten or Mike?
John, what documents are you referring to?
Some of the studies that Ann has pointed to, some of the documents that Lynn has given us, some of the
Newspaper
documents that the town that has created, the master plan. Just something instead of each one of us going to have to find it or keep it locally in our own computer, it'll be just directed with hot links. Some might have a small document in there, but it'll be public documents. Like this was a study from Minnesota that looked at long-term liver effects for PFAS.
The other thing I would share, and Kirsten, feel free to jump in on this, is we now have a PFAS in Londonderry page, I believe.
We do, and I would love more content for it.
Yeah.
So if you would like to send me things for a resource library, I'd be more than happy to construct it for the documents that you think are of the greatest interest to the public. And I certainly think that if these are final documents and resources, that might be the best home for them.
Good idea.
I do want to take into consideration draft or in progress documents, but that's a separate conversation that I can have once I talk to IT. But I do think that would be a wonderful home for them.
Okay, thank you. That's it. That was number 3.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate the information. And moving on.
I have one more, sorry.
Another
Have
question.
there been discussions with the congressional staff? What I'm looking for is all the sources and options for money.
Yes, there have been discussions, and as you're probably aware, and let me be clear, the discussions have centered around the community project funding program, that we've gotten money for wastewater, pretty significant money for wastewater, and water, in the past 2 years. So that program, you have to fit those, and this is commonly referred to as earmarks,
Right,
although
yeah, I
that's
know.
not what they're calling it anymore.
Yep.
You have to fit that into a bill, and as
Right.
you're probably aware, and we have wastewater all day long, because we can fit that into the Economic Development Initiatives bill, and that's how we funded sewer at Woodmont Commons, sewer at 4A. It's how we funded water infrastructure over there. It's difficult there are eligibility problems for, at least as it was described to us, that there are some eligibility issues fitting something like this into one of those bills, just because of the way that those programs are structured. I think that you raise a good point, which is, it is certainly an area of federal concern that the federal government is regulating this PFAS standard so low, and that there are going to be so many remediation costs as a result. Remediation costs that really we're never going to be able to solve this problem without federal legislation, in my opinion. And so,
No, I'd just be surprised if our Representative Chris Pappas or if Jeannie or if any of those guys haven't already put in some appropriations.
yeah. So there has been an initial tranche of money that's earmarked for New Hampshire, if you will,
Is
for PFAS remediation. It's not
But
anywhere
that's the
near
infrastructure bill.
nearly enough.
Right, are you talking the infrastructure bill?
I'm not sure of the program, but it's the $10 million figure.
Yeah, 9 billion for the whole country
Correct.
and 1.7 for us.
Hence
New
my
Hampshire.
comment, not going to be enough.
Yeah,
But I can tell you that
yeah, let's just.
we don't have. I don't care how good state revenues perform. I don't care how good the budget is performing. We're never going to have enough money at the state level to remediate everything down to 4 parts per trillion. So to your point is well taken. We need the feds engaged, and I think that our delegation understands the scope of that problem.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm confident that they're going to be good partners in the years and decades to come on that.
Have we started to think about how to apply for the 1.7 or 1.9 from EPA to New Hampshire? That money?
My belief is that, like most federal dollars, those will be somehow administered through DES and through the state. And I don't know that those programs exist yet.
Okay,
Which?
okay, money's been appropriated, but it hasn't.
It was it was announced roughly at the same time as the new standard.
Yeah, April 10th.
And I think you're right. I think it's probably under that infrastructure
Yeah,
bill.
it's under the Infrastructure Act.
Yep.
All set?
Okay, yep.
Great. Okay, good. Moving on. Moving into subcommittee discussions. I had the Energy Subcommittee going first. Thank you all again for your support last night at the Town Council meeting, showing up for the first public hearing for our Community Choice Power Aggregation Program. Got a little bit of feedback from Chad, Franz, and certainly from Ron, and I thought the presentation went very well.
Very good.
Well received by the council. I think right now we gotta start thinking about our next step, which would be the public hearing number 2. And we wanted to solicit some thoughts tonight on when and where, and then I'll work with Colonial Power to see what we can do to put something together as well. We're getting into June, or we're in June, we're getting into the summer, heart of the summer, so I'm not sure what people think, if people have any opinions. Right now, the statute is we have 2 public hearings, there isn't any discussion on timing between the 2. And I was thinking, trying to get a room cafeteria at the high school on a Saturday morning. Don't know what people think about that. I'm hearing that maybe that could be challenging, getting the cafeteria on a Saturday morning, I don't know. Mike Kirsten, if you have any experience scheduling anything over there, if there's stuff going on there or not.
Is midweek better? Because we get toward the summer, folks want to go take off and do stuff and go swimming, whatever. Just my thought. And maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday is better.
What about the senior center?
That probably doesn't seat as many people as this room does.
Not big enough.
I can certainly reach out to the school and see what their schedule looks like for the summer to get kind of a preliminary sense of what they have and.
Or, yeah, I don't think I've booked anything over there on a weekend. But yeah, we can certainly look into that. I mean, another thing that comes to mind is a local church. It depends on what the anticipated turnout is, I think. Yeah.
Based on last night?
That was underwhelming. I mean, it's disappointing, when you put so much
it
work
met
into.
my expectations,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
what we were expecting. And my opinion is I don't think we're gonna see a big turnout at the next public hearing. It's
Right.
gonna be after the information cards are mailed and
Right.
people have it in front of them and they're saying, oh geez, what is this? And then we have our public information session. That's when we're gonna get the turnout, I think.
I mean,
But we have to be prepared.
this room is certainly available. I can tell you that when we do the budget kickoff on a Saturday morning in November, I mean, that's something that you'd think, and we do, we get a turnout. I don't know, how many people do we have? Like 10,
enough.
maybe 15?
Yeah. Not enough.
I can't imagine we're going to have more than that.
I will say we had 45 for the Watertown Hall, so I don't anticipate, my guess would be probably not that many
Yeah.
more, and that would easily fit in this room.
I think
Yeah.
my sense is it'll easily fit in here.
Okay.
And we
but-
can certainly arrange to have this room available for you on a Saturday very easily.
Yep. And I like it because it's televised as well. I mean, we have all the video equipment set up here.
Yep.
If we did go to the high school, do they charge us for using that room on a Saturday morning?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so. There is some contingencies for if the staff needs to be on site, but I don't think so. But I don't want to definitively say no without talking to Lisa first.
I thought janitor was mandatory.
What?
I thought janitor was mandatory.
And that's why I want to make sure I talk to Lisa before I give you a definitive answer. And I'm happy to look into that for you and I can give you guys an email.
They
So
charge me.
basically a breakdown of options and capacity if you'd like.
They charge me for the referee school there, so.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit different with public-private, so, and I get that as well, so, but I just
Sounds
wasn't
like it
sure.
might be easier just to do it here, though.
It would certainly be easiest to do it here if we felt we had the room to accommodate what we think the turnout will be.
Are you thinking sort of the end of June or end of August, or?
I would like to do it sooner than later. I think if we could do it in like the last Saturday morning of June, I don't know what day that is off the top of my head.
The 29th.
29th?
Yeah, I looked at it last night. Yeah.
Part of the challenge is until we do that, we can't get to the PUC.
Right,
Right.
sooner
They're
the
the
better.
one guys that we don't control.
Yep.
So getting in front of them sooner rather than later, I think, is advised.
So June 29th is the weekend before the July 4th weekend. I always think of the July 4th weekend, I always think of the month of July as nothing gets done in New England that month. Everybody's doing different things. So if we as a committee think the 29th will work, I'd like to pursue the 29th. And we'll see, Kirsten, if you can work that date. And I don't know what you think about accommodations. I think this room would work fine on a Saturday morning. And we'll see if, Colonial can support that. I'm sure they'll be able to. They're as interested in moving this project forward as we are, so. So if we're good with that, that's the path we'll go down at this point in time.
Lynn, I think once they get the cards in hand, that's when you're going to want the bigger room, because when people actually have the card in their hand and they know that it's going to change,
Right.
then they're going to come out. So maybe
Yeah.
have it at the high school when they get the cards,
Yep.
because that's when they're going to come out.
Yeah, and my guess is that'll be September,
Yeah.
and I think the timing will work just fine at that point in time.
Yeah. Then you want the big room.
So we'll say tentatively at this point, 9 a.m. June 29th, Saturday, here, Moose Hill Conference Room.
How about 10 a.m.?
I was going to say.
I think you may get more people at 10.
There you go.
It's Ray. Ray's like, I don't.
Ray will be there at 4
Let's
a.m.
make it, let's make it an 8 to make sure we have enough room.
Yeah, yeah.
We want people to show up. And
Yeah.
10 o'clock. How about that?
Perfect.
10 o'clock? Sounds good. Okay, great. Has anybody gotten any feedback from neighbors or friends or anything like that about this program?
They don't
No.
know about it yet.
I've gotten a few questions in our condo complex, what's it all about and that type of thing, so.
Yep.
Complex itself has selected a power supplier, so they're aware of the whole concept of selecting somebody and all of that. And so they were wondering, how does that tie into what's happening here? And so, we had to explain some of that.
Yep. The questions I've had from a couple of neighbors or a couple of friends, they both have solar on their roof, and they're wondering what the impact is going to be to their solar generation. And they're a little disappointed that they probably won't be taking full advantage of this. But, they understand the whole situation with the net metering situation. So at least from my perspective is they're savvy enough to understand the nuances of the program and what it can and can't, or can and won't support.
Lynn, a question for Colonial might be for after, when the cards come out, from their past experiences, what is the turnout for that session? Because, obviously, we have some limited facilities in town here, but the cafeteria over at the high school is, I don't care for that as a meeting room. You can't hear anything. It's a difficult room to work in. If you could put that here based on their experience, it might be better.
Good, certainly ask the question.
In other situations I've seen where they've had multiple meetings, those turnout was so great, they just decided to schedule additional meetings until everybody had a shot at asking questions, clarifying anything that they want to know, so
That makes sense.
just a thought.
And there's nothing to say that we can't have additional public hearings.
Right.
Yep. I think in my mind, the key thing now is to go through the second public hearing and get the submission into the PUC and get them moving on the approval of the project.
And to Councilor Dunn's point, it may be best to just schedule another informational session closer to when we know what the rate is and people are getting their cards.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, good.
It gets real.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Lynn, in terms of the content of the next public information, basically same deck?
I would, I would expect the same deck with modifications based on questions or comments that have been received.
Except they'll have hopefully information, maybe they won't at the end of June. Will they have information as to what the rate is or
No.
what, the normal rate is or average
No.
rates are?
I wouldn't even go down that path
Yeah,
at
no.
this point in time. That would be making expectations, setting expectations that may not be met. And I
Okay.
wouldn't want to do that at this point in
Can
time.
they say something what they are less than the norm? I mean, the past 5 years, the Eversource rate has been here, but
Our source rate over the last 5 years has gone anywhere from 7 cents to 21 cents.
right, such a huge
Which is why we're
range.
doing this.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe an infographic showing that, and one of the ideas behind this program is to stabilize those rates. So, but once again, I'm just, and I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I'm leery of presenting any kind of data early on because, people are gonna say, well, you said back in June it was gonna be this and it's not. What's the deal?
Well, you can always introduce it by saying, listen, we're not exactly sure about these numbers. This is our best guess estimate.
No, I wouldn't even
Well-
give a best guess.
Would they, I mean, because Colonial Power has been working in Massachusetts for several years, so would they feel comfortable giving information about their past
In Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts? So that, because I do think people should have an understanding of, what this company is, and, I don't know.
They have that data. I'll ask what his feeling is on doing that. But
Stuart
I
did give
don't
us.
want to project anything going
He did give a
forward.
small example last night where he said towns can have a 2 or 3 or 5 year contract, and then he said there are times in that contract where the rate was higher, but overall the rate was lower for the entire term of the contract. You
Right.
mentioned that last night.
Yep.
So
But people are gonna say, okay, what's higher and lower mean? They're gonna say, how much is this gonna cost me? And the way to present this positively is to say, on the average, it's gonna cost you less. If that's accurate.
I just wouldn't give specifics
information.
until we know.
Well, but I think what Ann is bringing up is throw a clause on the end of that sentence. We can't guarantee you that, because they did say
Exactly.
that the other night. But based on
Exactly.
our experience in Massachusetts over the last 7 years, we have averaged 5% savings, or it's some
Right.
number that they
Right.
should be able to reach out and offer up. And then finish it up by hedging their bet again, saying, but we're not guaranteeing that to you.
For you here in,
Yeah.
right, Londonderry.
I think they've already said that in the presentation, they've come before us. And so,
Right.
the
I
same
think-
thing, it should be said, I think,
Well, but I think we've been nipping around the edges a little bit by saying things like, we can't guarantee it, I understand that. And maybe to get it just a little bit more concrete for people that are coming in, for however many people come for this thing, it would be to our advantage, I think.
We can try, power markets are global things these days.
yeah.
I think the important point that needs to be conveyed is you can opt out anytime.
Yep.
Sure.
Don't like your situation, you can opt out.
There is no objection to which we do not have a simple answer. Write it down. Whatever your problem with this program is, fine, drop out. But I think that last night's presentation was good for the town council, give me the facts, ma'am. But I think for the public, it would be good if we could get a little more color into it. And Paul's suggestion of a nice colorful chart of the last 5 years, semester by semester of the PSNS rate, and then you can to use that to illustrate. And this is the problem we're trying to solve. So he has that chart that's got a list of advantages. So you should be able to create a colorful way, you know, even if it's just a picture of a guy scratching his head or something, to get each point across. But, you know, this is just, I guess, showmanship, you might want to call it. but-
Salesmanship, warm and fuzzy.
Well,
Yeah,
you want
right,
to point
right.
out
Right,
the advantage of, yes, history's there as to every 6 months how the rate changed.
right.
That's public knowledge. What they bring to the table is they're not bound by the 6-month resetting of the rates. They can go longer term and negotiate a better, stable price. I think that kind of concept could be communicated in some fashion. I would be very cautious about putting very specific numbers, because I don't know what the load is for the town of Londonderry. I haven't seen any of that data, so I'm not sure what we're talking about in terms of going out to bid with yet.
I guess forecasting numbers, that's risky, but historical data for warm and fuzzies is okay, right?
Understand?
Right.
Conceptually, if they can communicate the advantages of what they bring to the table in terms of negotiating longer-term contracts and so forth and so on, that makes a lot of sense. And
And
so,
lower rates. I
Right.
mean, people don't care that much about the length
and
of
in
the
the end,
contracts. They care
in the
about
end,
how
you
much they
can,
have to
you
pay.
can opt out anytime.
Right.
So the risk factor to any particular customer is you have an option, you can get
Yep.
out.
Yeah, you may have to pay attention a little bit more if you want to,
I-
that would be the only thing. Yep.
How do
They
you,
did say last night that they would not launch, as they've said in this meeting previously, unless the initial launch was at a price
Right.
point below Eversource.
Yep.
So, marrying that up with the opt-out anytime you want, I mean, frankly, hopefully you're getting everybody to look at their supplier rates a little bit more closely going into the future. I mean, the fact that grabbed me from the presentation, the other night was something like 90% of the people are still with Eversource, and they may have benefited from the recent low rate, but, you know, certainly over the past 4 or 5 years, that hasn't been your best possible source
Yep.
for a supplier, so get people to look at that a little bit more closely, maybe with the benefit of this committee informing them about what's going on as we go down the road.
have they discussed how you mechanically opt out? Is it online? Is it, you send back a postcard? Can you place a phone call?
All of the
And-
above.
And
Yeah.
I would think that one of the things that the public would want to be assured of is that, in the council, is that it's easy to get out if you want to.
Yep.
And I think one of the other questions that I would have is, my understanding is they're compensated through the rate.
Correct.
What is the percentage? What does that look like? Does it depend on, you know, the size of the purchase? I would think that those are some of the things that maybe you've discussed.
So
internally.
he said last night, he said in the past, 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour is what their rate is. So if the consumer's paying 10 cents, or if the consumer's paying 10.1 cents per kilowatt hour, that 1/10 goes to them.
Yep. And to your point, I mean, the size of the load matters, and I think to give it some frame of reference, you know, how much money is being made off of this? I think that's a legitimate source of inquiry, and I think it's something that probably the PUC will be interested in as well.
Can I ask a question? Is this just being negotiated for the town of Londonderry, or are there other towns that are also part of this?
Just us.
In other words, when they're,
Just us.
Just us.
just us?
Every town is on, I don't want to say on their own, but every town is can negotiate with, there's 3 suppliers right now in the state that do this type of aggregation program. And each town would be negotiating on their own with their own chosen supplier.
What
So the
happens if
town is doing the
towns did
negotiation, not the aggregator? Who's doing the negotiating?
When you say what,
With the supplier, you mean? With the power plant?
Yes,
Yeah.
They are.
They are.
they are. Okay.
no, when you said each town, I didn't understand your question, I'm sorry.
Well, when they're negotiating with the supplier,
Yep.
they are buying a particular type of quantity, okay? And if they have, not only they have Londonderry, but they also have other towns.
Yep.
They're bidding on all of that.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
And so, the more they have, the more chance they have of getting a lower cost.
Correct.
And we would be included in that.
Correct.
Yeah.
To a point, I asked that very question at one of the times that he was here, and his response was that Londonderry is kind of an ideal size in terms of matching an offtake load to the capacity of a particular energy provider, energy generator to match up to. So, while you could have a collection of 5 Londonderrys, it might not necessarily be to your advantage because you can't find suppliers that are willing to take all that on. Because it's not like Eversource where you're dealing with all kinds of inputs and then just parsing them out.
Well, the suppliers are individual power plants.
Right,
Eversource, it doesn't have any power production.
right,
Okay, they're only supplying it.
right.
Okay, so they're not going to Eversource, or correct me if I'm wrong. You're already going to say
They're
something.
not going to Eversource. no.
They're not going to Eversource. They are going to the individual power plants
Right.
to actually negotiate.
Yeah, Granite Ridge, hello, Mr. Granite Ridge, we'd like to buy some power.
Yep.
Or the nuclear plant, or
whatever.
or
Yeah.
Right.
whatever's happening down in Newington and Portsmouth, who knows? So, a lot to think about. With no guarantees, but the concept is good.
But wouldn't they have more leverage if they they just said, well, let's look at all of Rockingham County?
Yeah,
Wouldn't they have more leverage?
yes.
With the power
It would
generator?
depend on the power market.
Yeah. Yeah, he gave an example of the city of Boston that they got a higher rate than another town that went in for the same thing. He gave that example here in the committee he
You
presented
need
to
to
us.
understand the
Yeah.
dynamics of buying a
Right.
slice of power.
So,
If
Yeah.
you have a big, let's say, a
Big
whole
pie.
big pie, okay?
Yeah.
And you're buying from this power plant and that power plant, you may have to buy from 2 more, 3 more power plants to make sure that if this one goes down, this one can fire up. So you might have one just standing there doing nothing, just as a backup to this power, because the power still has to flow. So when you get too big, other dynamics come into play about guaranteeing the power.
You become an Eversource, essentially.
To
Yeah,
some
but
degree, yes.
the power
So-
plants won't guarantee that they're going to be able to produce the power.
Depends on how the
They want-
contract,
they
depends
want
how
to-
the contract's negotiated. Okay? What I heard what you heard, is the town of Londonderry is roughly an ideal size or preferable size for going out to bid for a contract for power that we know we will get,
yep.
okay? And when you get a lot bigger, you get a lot more complicating factors in terms of guaranteeing the power to be delivered, should there be something that happens to a power plant.
Which can cause the price to go up.
Absolutely.
It'd be nice if we could negotiate directly with AES, but I guess that's not possible.
It's not how the rules in New Hampshire are structured, so.
Yeah,
Kirsten's good, but she's not that good.
Oh, yeah, I don't have any control over this, don't you
you
worry.
can negotiate with AES.
I'm in charge of nothing and nobody.
What am I missing here?
We don't believe it.
So, we'll get the feedback back to Colonial. We'll see what we can do about setting up a meeting for June 29th, 10
Yep.
o'clock here in the Moose Hill Conference Room. Kirsten?
Yep, I'll book that for now, and then if we have to take it off, it's easier to do that than add it
Yep.
later.
Great,
So.
Great,
And if
thanks.
you're thinking of I think I heard the word infographic mentioned. If you're looking for some kind of an infographic, I know Kirsten would probably be thrilled to produce something to explain these just exhilarating concepts.
Yes.
Make sure that everybody's engaged.
I think the 4-word summary that I would like to see you give, Stu, is less words, more pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that'll help.
Should be thrilled if that was in color in PDF format landscape. Please, thank you.
8 by 10 glossy figure.
John, what did you say last time? Less words or too many words? Didn't read,
Too long, don't read.
too long, don't read.
TLDR.
What was it?
TLDR,
Too long, don't read.
kids
Too long,
say.
don't read. I love it.
Say,
When I was listening, I started laughing.
you can tell who has high schoolers in this
Right.
group.
Mr. Chairman, just before you leave energy, just one thing. I have had, I don't want to sound like a paranoid here, but 2 calls from third-party suppliers in the past week, neither of whom is one that I'm doing business with, soliciting my business and telling me they have, what their rate is for the next 6 months and, that kind of thing.
For electricity or for oil?
For electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm wondering if, I don't know if this is a big enough concern to them that they would be responding to the potential of towns like ours aggregating and going after end users, because if I don't currently have Eversource, but if I had Eversource, or if I was signed up with one of these guys, I wouldn't be a target for our program necessarily. And I'm wondering if there is a big sign-up effort being put forward. Okay, I'll go back to my
Interesting,
paranoia
yeah.
then.
Yeah.
We can talk after and tell me who it is.
Yeah.
You know what? I got to be honest with you. I wrote both names down. I remember one of them, and I lost the piece of paper I wrote them down on. So.
Moving on, Mike, you sent me a note regarding a webinar that you signed up for.
Yes, I think it was how to do, well, I signed up, I have about 3 in the queue right now.
So this was on the charging stations.
Yeah, yes. So how can towns get grant money to set up charging stations? And it wasn't necessarily limited to just their municipal vehicles, but, just making them available and promoting commerce within the town by making the public available and able to drive their Tesla here and charge up and buy apples or whatever the case might be. So it seemed like worth watching, and I'll do that, and then I can report
Perfect,
next time.
perfect. Mike, has there been any discussions, I know the planning board's talked a little bit about, requiring charging stations at some newer developments, not requiring, but suggesting that they have them, like the new gas station up off of Exit 5. Is there any talk in town about getting electric vehicles for the town staff to use, or, for DPW use, police car use, or anything like that?
The only discussion that I've heard is probably some aspirational talk at the police department, believe it or not.
Yep.
Given how much they drive, given the cost of fuel, given that the vehicles are running 24/7, I guess the way I would put it is that when we turn the fleet over under the master lease program next, it's going to be combustion engines. But sure, I think at some point that's something that probably would be easier to roll out for a smaller department first.
Yeah, like the building inspector as an example,
correct.
something like that. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's definitely something to look at. And I mean, depending on the practicalities, I mean, it's around town driving. I mean, they're driving, a bit, certainly not as much as the police. I could see perhaps a grant being available for something like that. Yeah, I think we'd be open to it. In terms of, seeing, kind of encouraging, incentivizing charging stations, that is something that you know, and I think you've probably seen this at the planning board. You know, a lot of developers are willing to do it kind of as a, yeah, you know, we'd like to do that. That makes some sense. Maybe it will help us attract customers.
Right.
Maybe it'll make the planning board feel, you know, better towards us. I think I mean, sometimes that is just kind of,
Yeah.
sure, yeah, we'll do it. That's what I've seen.
Could I say something? We're talking about electric vehicles here. I had the opportunity to talk to an individual from Waste Management. And as we probably know, they came before us because they intend on putting in a fueling station over here in Londonderry, up in North Londonderry, to power some of their vehicles with actually landfill gas. And I took the initiative to go to their facility because they do have an office here in Londonderry, or they did have.
They do.
They pretty much moved out of it now. I spoke to a lady there. She gave me a contact of the gentleman that came to Londonderry. You remember Waste Management came before, I guess, was it the planning department? Planning board?
No, it was conservation.
Conservation.
Conservation, oh, conservation, right. And I spoke to him, and we had a conversation in regards to, has Waste Management thought of powering any of their trucks with electric? He didn't know. But he said he would check. He called me back today. He found out that Londonderry actually has an electric truck.
Yes, they do.
Okay,
It was in
And-
the parade.
One?
huh?
It was in the parade.
Yeah, which they are experimenting with, okay? The problem they have is that they also have hydraulics, which takes a lot of power, okay? The truck they're using is to pick up the blue containers, which is typically a lot of light stuff. And so that makes a lot of sense, okay? It makes a lot of sense actually for them in different parts of the country. They are experimenting further with that. It makes sense because they are making local runs in town, and then at the end of the day, they can go back and they plug them in and recharge them for a subsequent run.
Yeah, from that fossil plant down the road. Okay.
Yeah, what?
From that fossil plant down the road.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's good. At least they're looking at that, okay? It doesn't make any sense for long-haul diesel trucks that you're gonna power with electricity. As far as what we're talking about, charging stations, if we recall, the town of Derry, at their town hall, actually had 2 or 3 charging stations, which they've subsequently taken out. I don't know why. Apparently, they weren't getting much usage out of it. So they said, the heck of it, we're gonna take the damn things out. Now, we've kind of advanced from there, because this was a number of years ago. And now we are seeing more electric vehicles. And so, perhaps there is a need for it, but to put in charging stations takes a lot of money, you know? And if you're gonna put in charging stations where people can go throughout the state of New Hampshire, it makes more sense locally. And perhaps it does make sense in this general area.
I just need to add a little bit to what you said, because there was an article in today's Times about EVs, and essentially they said that because of the pandemic and the issue of parts and all that kind of stuff, and the high cost of electric vehicles, it has been a problem in the past selling EVs. But the demand now is starting to go up, and the price for electric vehicles is coming down big time.
Correction. It went from 7.6 to 7.1. It went down in the
Right.
last 6 months.
Right,
The
but they're
demand
saying,
went down,
right,
the price went down 12%.
right,
Yes, it
that's
did.
quite a bit.
Right, so the average
you
used to
have
be
gov-
65, it's now 55, and Chevy's gonna offer a $32,000 electric vehicle.
Right.
Somebody's studying this quite a bit.
Yeah.
And
It's called
they've also-
carbon footprint, but go
But
ahead.
there's also tax write-offs. You get, up to 7,500 for tax write-off for an EV. So I think that the degree of interest and there'll be more of these cars produced and more people buy them because they're going to be cheaper. I'm a little surprised that Derry would, put that capital investment in and then take out the
All depends on
charging, but-
economics. So this is probably the wrong place to say it, but I believe in the market. Let the
Yeah.
market
Would-
dictate
I
what
think
happens.
it's good.
Will the state, though, lose the fuel tax from gasoline?
We're gonna move on to this discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not for
We
here.
would do well to be mindful of our town manager's advice to work on local problems that we have the capacity to solve.
right.
Yep. Anything else, energy related to, talk about tonight?
Yes.
Yep.
And it's not good news. We heard from Revision Energy, who had been working with us on the possibility of running three-phase power to the Superfund site up on Auburn Road and then putting in a solar array. But as they tried to pencil this out, they just can't make it work because the over $1 million that would go into getting the line there, it didn't justify the amount of power that they could create at that site. So we're in the process of looking for an alternative place or figuring out an alternative way to finance that line. I don't guess Chris is gone. She tried to do that one time, but I've got a whole series of grant opportunities from Senator Shaheen's office, and hopefully we need to work our way into one of those. And we shouldn't, I don't think, just overlook the fact that we have a hell of a lot of roof space in our municipal buildings.
Mhm.
And if we really want to, I'm not sure what the three-phase situation is in this area. Do you know? Mark?
No.
But, so it's just still an ongoing project to, A, find a line, and B, find a place. Yeah, Paul?
Has Revision Energy showed you any analytics of what their analysis shows or anything?
No, he didn't.
Is it possible to get a draft of that?
Oh, you can always ask, yeah.
I'd be interested in seeing it.
Yeah, let me see what I can do.
So along the lines of Revision Energy, so Bob Slater had approached me, Bob Slater, the head of the school board, had approached me a year ago about us helping them install solar over the high school parking lot. And after Revision had sent us that note about Auburn Road, I'd gotten a separate note from them asking about the high school project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they apparently have done a couple of projects recently. They have engineering capability now to do a project like that. So I talked with Bob last night at the town council meeting, and we're going to try to get something set up at the school sometime this summer when they get their new building and grounds person hired and onboarded sometime later this summer. So that still is a potential, is to put something in over the high school.
And there is three-phase power there.
Yep.
So-
So,
Which would make all these buildings, candidates, I think.
yep. So that's happening, and it's really a school board project. We'll be consultants to the school board on that, just trying to get all the parties together at this point in time. But that came up just as this whole three-phase power situation at Auburn Road was being discussed, as being a real roadblock to the project at this point.
So is Auburn Road dead as a site now,
No,
or are you looking for a grant, Mike, that would put in the three-phase power and then try to recruit somebody to do something once. you
Yeah, I
find
mean, revision said that they'd be back in a heartbeat if we could,
Okay.
figure that problem out. So, there are sort of two solutions, get the power out there or find another place to put the panels.
A number of years ago, there was a federal initiative called the Million Solar Roofs Project. And this is actually a pretty good opportunity for the infrastructure bill too, and infrastructure money, is to use and to put in a bid for money to put solar roofs on our municipal buildings and schools.
Which has happened in some towns in New Hampshire here, municipal buildings, that they have put them on. And apparently it's worked out. Yep. And we can have discussion with those towns.
Yeah, and once again, understanding that the school board owns their own buildings. And so, it's a topic of discussion, but
But the school board's part of the town, right?
Nope.
So it's in town money.
Separate government.
separate government. So,
Hey,
Yes.
So is the library, if anybody ever asks you.
yeah. So moving, so I think, anything else we want to talk about there?
No, I want to eventually, I don't know what the appropriate time is, because it involves all different subcommittees, but this idea of energy efficiency audits, I think, still should be front and center for us.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
And I think it's a matter of maybe tasking some subcommittee to pursue that, because it could involve water, it could involve electric, could involve fuel.
Yeah.
But it's just the most obvious first step, and it's the cheapest.
I think sometimes there is money available for that, for energy audits.
So I think it falls under, probably best falls under the energy subcommittee. So, let's schedule, I don't know what everybody else thinks about that, but let's schedule a subcommittee meeting. Let's figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, we need to, I think, do a little homework before that meeting.
Yep.
Get some options. I mean, I've had some conversations with one of the engineering firms that would do that sort of thing. Their advice was, do it in phases, so look for low-hanging fruit, and then, based on that, dig in deeper and try to figure out what you can do. The other approach to this is to do the contracted savings, like the school system did. So we need, I think, to do the homework and find out how that would work. There's also grants under the block grant program for doing that. So if more money comes out of that, it's another possibility.
Let's take that on.
Okay.
Moving down, the water subcommittee. I know Martha and Jeff are both gone
I'm
tonight.
here.
Ann is here.
George's here.
John's here.
Raise
John's
here,
here.
raise here,
Right here.
raise here. Yep.
So a quick update.
The water czar's here.
The water's ours, yeah.
So we are watered up.
So real quick, Ann's working on the next phase of the video.
Yep.
We're working on doing research for documentation to get ready to do whatever we need to do to supply data for the master plan. That's our charter to do it.
Yep. Essentially, I'm going to update the presentation I already drafted and get that to Jeff, and Jeff's going to get it out to the crew to look at and draft. And then we'll line up a date to do the rehearsal, and then we'll do we wanted to do it in June.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
And we're looking for funding for shovels and picks so we can help dig water lines.
Yeah, and overalls and
And
stuff.
overalls.
So, yeah.
No, I
hats.
can give you a shovel.
One note, Mr. Chair, on water. I got a call from the Eagle Tribune this afternoon. I thought they were calling to get comment on some local controversy or another. No, they were interested in the first reading that was waived last night for our amendment to the stormwater ordinance. So great to see the press interested and engaged on a topic like that. I gave them some content, and it's already on the website. Londonderry to hold hearing on stormwater ordinance update. I don't know what it says because I don't have a subscription, but I'm going to go upstairs and buy the article and encourage everybody to check it out.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. We get down to the round table, so, perfect. You had your hand up, Ray?
Huh?
Did you have
No,
your
I-
hand up?
In regards to that, the stormwater, which is, there's going to be a reading coming up, right? I thought it was going to be last night, but it wasn't.
Full public hearing on June 17th.
Yeah, and I did speak briefly in that regard. As part of that, there was supposed to be public input. I personally would like to be involved in that, okay? Not that I want to tell anybody what they need to do, but I think it's important that we pay attention to that because it is vitally important. It's not only a state requirement, it's a federal requirement. And there is a requirement that public, that the public be involved in it and participate in it. That is one of the requirements. And I read through the revision. I didn't see any of that in there. So I would be curious as to what was in fact revised and why was it necessary to revise it at all? Could you answer that?
Yes. So, a few things. Oh,
I'm not trying to put you on the spot, right?
Sounds like
no, that was
sorry
good.
that sounds like you did.
I spent a lot
I
of
guess
time.
I did. I'm sorry.
I spent a lot of time in courtrooms. I know what I'm being.
This is not an inquisition.
Yes, we welcome and encourage public input at every juncture. I'm unfamiliar with any federal or requirement or other requirement that would involve the public in the issuance of a stormwater permit or some other public participation. I mean, I'm just not sure what it may well exist. I don't have any reason to believe that it doesn't, but I'm not aware specifically what you're referring to.
I would gladly share it with you.
And then I'll be happy to respond. As far as why it needed to be revised, as I think you're aware, or I think we had this discussion at one point in the distant past. We were cited by the EPA for not having a compliant ordinance.
Or a stormwater plan, which requires ordinance, yeah.
To my knowledge, we haven't been cited for not having a stormwater plan. But the MS4 program
Right.
initially focused on different aspects of clean water, and the EPA has now gotten around to stormwater and runoff, and is beginning to enforce that requirement.
Oh, we've been, sorry, I shouldn't say we since I'm not there anymore, but the agency has been enforcing stormwater requirements for a long time.
Yes, this is an unfunded mandate that has come down on municipalities under the Clean Water Act. It's something that I think municipalities have been slow to adopt in New Hampshire because of a lack of resources, and that's something that we talked about this year throughout the budget process. The fact that we didn't have sufficient funding for a street sweeping program, the fact that we didn't have sufficient funding to do the drafting and technical preparation that's entailed in getting to the point where we have a compliant ordinance. And those are things that we prioritize through the budget process, through the creation of the MS4 trust fund. really hearing what the community has told us about the importance of clean water. I think there's an increasing awareness about that, that came with the PFAS crisis and has expanded into other areas such as this. So that's the reason that this work was necessary. It's to stay compliant with federal requirements. And we've worked with our engineering consultant, who does a lot of this work and is familiar with these requirements, has the technical capacity to do this. And I'm confident that the changes that have been implemented are not only compliant, but are going to improve the quality of water in Londonderry.
Real quick, I don't want to make too long because I'm gonna get diverted. We have to have the ordinance. I understand why they have to have street sweeping. That all falls into it. Out west, they do monitoring of fertilizer runoff and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Do we have to
Animal.
monitor?
So there are monitoring requirements under our MS4 permit. I can't speak to the technical, specifications
it's
of
very expensive.
what they're looking for, but I do know that it's something that, yes, we need to do. It's something that we we're increasing our efforts, and we're increasing the money that we're spending.
Can I also ask a question on this one? Because I think and provide a suggestion. Who is the environmental consultant that we have working on this? Is it Norman Doe or
Stantec is the engineering consultant.
Santa?
Stantec.
Okay, sorry, I'm half kidding. But I'm wondering whether or not you don't want to ask them or another consultant that you think is a good consultant to do an overall compliance assessment of the town. And that would mean air, water, waste, everything, so that you would get an environmental compliance assessment and a sense of which of those issues or problems are priorities. This is a suggestion that actually at EPA we would make to a lot of people, companies, municipalities. Do your overall environmental compliance assessment and get a sense as to what your issues are and problems are, and then prioritize those within the town. And so that's one thing that I would just suggest to you.
That's certainly something that I think we'd be open to.
It doesn't need to be wildly expensive.
Well, that was what I was
I mean, it
gonna
can
say.
be
Yeah.
50, 60, it doesn't need to be wildly expensive.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the environmental consultants do this on a
was just gonna
regular
say,
basis.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, it's something that we've done here and there, I think.
Right, you've been
but
doing
not
bits and pieces.
comprehensively.
And what I'm suggesting is an overall, and not just of, town offices, but schools, and maybe you can get some funding from the schools to help with this
It's a
project.
good suggestion. It's certainly something that we can look at.
I would
Okay.
like to say something else. This is a huge job to monitor all of this. The town, the engineering department is way too busy doing other things. So they've attempted to do a good job because they're required to do an annual report to it, which they have done. But I think the EPA is expecting more, and it should be done. But I'm suggesting that because it is a federal requirement, US EPA, the town would be perfectly have a right to ask for federal money so that we can do this job properly. Now we've got $100,000 that we're going to hire Stantec to assist us with this, but $100,000 isn't going to go very far because this is a really big job to monitor all this. And on top of that, some of the companies or developments in town that have retention basins, they have a responsibility to monitor those also.
Correct.
Now, then we have the responsibility to make sure that they are doing that.
That's correct.
And so we need help. We need help, meaning I would suggest we should go back to the federal government and say, hey, we're trying to do this job, but we need some help here. We need some money.
Yeah, I think that's not how the MS4 program works. However, there may be grant opportunities that aren't connected with that program that could assist with some of these efforts. I agree with you. It's something that we need to.
Yeah,
We haven't been funding anywhere close to sufficiently. Something that I was proud that the council supported and the community supported this past cycle. But it's it's one of those things that we can't put it on the shelf. We need to make sure that we're putting this money to good use and that we're investing in it at a level that I think this important issue deserves.
But because we're mandated by the federal government to
Correct.
do this, and we should ask for some help monetarily.
Well, there are lots of laws, both at the federal level and the state level, in which the town is mandated, in which federal facilities are mandated, in which corporations are mandated. I mean, this is one piece, that's why I was sort of suggesting the environmental compliance assessment, so that we get a sense of all of the areas in which we're lacking,
Yeah.
and then we can prioritize those.
Well, we've
Figure-
already done 2 studies, water quality and water quantity. One of them was also supposed to include air, but it didn't. So there have been some recommendations, not specifically about MS4,
Right.
but we need to look at those.
I'm just glad that we're talking about MS4.
Yep.
I think that that's really important, and we need to keep doing it as a community because most people aren't aware of it, and it is something that is in our not only our economic interests, but really our this is about human health ultimately,
Yep.
and the environment.
And I want to say the agenda for the town council meeting yesterday, the full agenda included the
Yes.
ordinance with the changes highlighted in red, so it's easy to read through and see what the changes that are being made to it are.
That's important. Thank you
Yep.
for that.
And the next reading is going to be at the next town council meeting.
Correct.
And the town, I assume the council will vote to adopt or amend as whatever.
That's my hope.
Looks like.
Yep, I think that, and the engineering department will be there to answer questions and
Great.
make the presentation.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Moving on to the sewer and solid waste, wastewater facilities plan. Mike, you thought you might have an update for us on time for
Yeah,
that?
I haven't had a chance to connect with John Trotter on that, but that is one of my priorities for the coming year. Most of the work has been done on this. It's a question of getting it before the committee. And so the plan is to have a sit down with the engineering department soon. So certainly by the July meeting, we'll have a plan with a date certain that
Plan
that
to
will be-
closure,
will
yeah.
be coming here for the committee's input.
Okay.
Because it really is going to require, before adoption by the town council, your expertise and ultimately the council's judgment, because there's a series of policy decisions that need to be made about how much we want to invest, where the areas of need are. We don't need to sewer the whole town, but where we do bring sewer, development tends to follow. So we want to make sure that the decisions that we make don't have unintended consequences, and that we are making smart decisions for the taxpayers, to include maintaining a healthy tax base.
We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we did a septic field study, and that hopefully it will inform this plan, because it identified the areas that are the greatest threat to the environment, and then arguably those are the areas that should be considered for sewering.
That's exactly right. I think there's more work that could be done, building on the work that was done there. That was a grant that was awarded for that work. We had an intern that assisted us with it. Very valuable data, and that's exactly right. I think that it's a good data point to inform some of these decisions.
Because we are at risk in a lot of areas of town. And
Yeah.
the data won't do any good if we don't act.
Absolutely, and it may, in addition to sewer facilities, suggest the need for, we did the conservation overlay district a number of years ago. I believe that there were some amendments made in the last couple of years about stormwater and groundwater. So it's something that we need to continue to look at. No question about that. And we need to continue our conservation plan. I think that, Mike, as you know, the Lithia Springs project is really important for groundwater and habitat. That was at risk of development. Some of the best habitat for threatened and endangered species just adjacent to that wetlands complex. So it's a multifaceted approach, I think.
We also have a groundwater protection ordinance.
Correct.
So both the one that's under discussion now and that one have reporting requirements. And in most cases, they're on the honor system. So you have to basically do your work and put it in your notebook at your office. And we don't have anybody that goes to the office then and says, let's see your notebook. And, and maybe do a spot check on a retention pond or whatever, or look at the inventory of chemicals and has that been reported? So, I don't, it's the same problem, but it is part of this ball of things that all comes down to money and staffing. We're putting the rules in place. The question is how to implement and monitor them and enforce them. And probably looking at all these challenges together is going to be the most efficient way to meet them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's a very good way of putting it. I think everybody on this board knows how busy the engineering department is. The good thing about New Hampshire is that we don't have a lot of government, but that forces us to make really hard choices about what our priorities are. And I don't think we're any different than any other community in that regard. But all of what you're saying is accurate.
Okay,
Yeah, plus you're on sort of, as an MS4 community now, the community can be inspected anytime underwater.
Correct, and there is precedent for, significant fines against communities that are not doing what they should be doing.
Yep.
So, if only from our economic interests, we need to make sure that we're investing in this efficiently.
And that's just one law. That doesn't include hazardous waste and RCRA.
Correct.
Right.
And we've been obligated since 2019.
Well, actually.
This isn't new.
No, I'm just, actually, since the passage of the laws. So, anyway.
anyway, let's move on. Cable and internet, nothing of interest there. So moving on, next would be roundtable. Start with Paul.
I'm good.
Ann?
I'm fine for now.
Joy?
Oh, good.
John?
Okay, William.
I confess to having inserted all my roundtable thoughts already.
Yeah.
John?
Same.
Brett? Ron?
I've said good enough.
Mike, anything you'd like to add?
No, thanks for a good discussion as always. I always enjoy coming, and being put on the hot seat here and there.
Well,
We're all in this
they believe-
together.
Everybody believes you, nobody believes me.
I think everybody believes
It's
me.
always
but-
great when you're there. So, in the spirit of the warrant articles, the advisory warrant articles, we'll insert public comment at the end of the meeting, so we have nobody from the public, so we've complied with that. Next meeting, the next meeting is scheduled now for July 2nd, Tuesday. I most likely will be out of town. Martha is probably going to have another commitment as well. So what I would like to propose is that the subcommittees keep doing the good work that the subcommittees are doing, and let's have our next meeting in August.
Yeah.
If we're good
I
with
second that motion.
Because that's July 4th week. It's going to be a tough week, I think, for everybody, just for a lot of reasons. So with that said,
6 August.
August 6th.
August 6th will be our next meeting. 7 o'clock, Moose Hill Conference Room. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Who moved?
John.
John moved.
Second.
And second.
All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you, Drew.
Off the record, they've completed.